Hey there guys, my name is Bizzleberry and I am a Grandmaster Support in League of Legends. This is a Yuumi guide for Season 10. If you also are interested in support guides for any of the other supports that are in the game at the moment, then please browse through my support guides playlist, and I've got loads of different supports that I've done in this similar format for you to browse. We also do tier lists and stuff like that as well. So for this one, it's for Yuumi. If you're new to these type of guides, what we do is we go through the runes, the items, the abilities, the skill orders, and any advanced little tips and tricks that I can give you to help you get used to Yuumi and maybe pull off a couple of wins. So as you can see here, we've got a Summon Aerie build for Yuumi. This is the current build for her as of 10.12. I wouldn't actually, usually in these guides, I advise you to do variants in runes, but this is like 90% of the games that you'll be doing here. There's not too much to change. The only only one or two runes that you could change here are in the sorcery. So let's have a look at this. So Summon Aerie is your basic one, and Mana Flow Band because Yuumi goes out of mana really quickly during the first part of the laning phase. Transcendence will give you that mid-game boost in cooldown reduction, but you can also go into Absolute Focus, as you shouldn't be taking too much damage during the laning phase as you will be attached to someone. This will give you a slight extra DPS and a tiny bit extra on your heals during the early part of the laning phase, but overall I generally prefer the extra 10% cooldown reduction once you hit that mid-game kind of area and get closer towards that 40-45% cooldown of reduction, depending if you stick with this build or not. Gathering Storm is also another reason for that mid-game spike. You could go into Scorch, but the Scorch damage is pretty terrible. Once you hit the 10-minute mark on Gathering Storm, it's already better than Scorch. So I think your preference on that Yuumi is focusing on after the laning phase, getting past the laning phase, and then that's when Yuumi starts to kick off, and that's when, you know, she gets deemed as OP. In the secondaries here, we've got Precision, we've got Presence of Mind. That gives you an insane amount of mana regen if you happen to get a kill in the laning phase or an assist. It can definitely buff out your health, your mana quite a bit. As I said earlier, Yuumi's mana costs are pretty expensive, so getting a good chunk of your mana back on an assist in the middle of a fight can be absolutely amazing. And then we've got Cut Down. Cut Down is the reason why you go into the precision tree on Yuumi. Yuumi's base health is pretty low, so the lower health that you have on Yuumi, the more extra damage you will do against higher health targets. And because of this rune, you never want to take the health stat rune because it will negatively affect the cut down. So when you're choosing your stat runes here, always take either armor or magic resistance, never the health, for this reason. Double adaptive force down here, and then you can then choose between which defense rune you want between the armor and the magic resistance, depending on what you're playing against. As I mentioned before, there isn't much to change from on this rune build. The only flexible rune in my opinion would be the Absolute Focus, but this is what you'll be generally looking like every single game, so it's not too complicated to work out what to do here. What we're going to do now is we're going to move over to the practice tool and start talking about all the different things like the items and the abilities, and while we'll do that, we'll talk about the summoners that you can take on Yuumi, which can be pretty wild. It kind of depends on what your AD carry is taking. So pick up Yuumi here. You never want flash on Yuumi. The most standard would be Ignite Exhaust. You could find yourself having a heal and then juggling which of the Ignite or Exhaust you want, depending on what your AD carry is taking. Sometimes your AD carry might take heal, they might take an Exhaust, they might go teleport. So there's lots of different, you just basically want two combat summoners. Yuumi doesn't need flash at all. So generally Ignite Exhaust is the most likely combination that you'll be taking in your games. Right, now let's give myself lots of money. We're going to be talking about the items that you can start picking up on Yuumi throughout the game. Give myself lots of levels here. Okay, so When you're starting off in the game, you'll be starting off with a Spell Thief's Edge. You won't want a Relic Shield at all ever, because it will give you health, and as we talked about earlier, the Cut Down rune won't be affected well with extra health. So you don't want to build health on Yuumi because you'll do less damage on your Cut Down. So always Spell Thieves, gives you a decent amount of mana regen as well, but you will have mana regen issues in lane until your first recall. Yumi's pretty mana intensive. The only way she can get mana back is from her passive, which we'll go into later, but that is the only way you can generate mana, and you will have mana issues, but we'll talk about later in the abilities and how to manage that better. Once you've done your first part of the laning phase, the primary item that you're looking for first is an Athene's Unholy Grail. This has great synergy with everything that you're doing in the laning phase and throughout the entire game, and it makes your heals massive. But here's one little advice that I would recommend is when you do your first recall, try and prioritize a triple Fairy Charm. You'll be using this Fairy Charm into your other items anyway, but the extra 25% mana regen will definitely help you more during the laning phase and can spam a couple more heals. So triple Fairy Charm is what I would suggest on your first recall, and if you got a little bit extra gold there, you want to pick up a Control Ward. That's like your general first buy there. Then you want to be heading into Yuumi doesn't really need the magic resistance, as you won't be coming out too often and taking too much damage. So you want to try and head into the Fiendish Codex as quickly as possible if you aren't able to outright buy the Athenes, and then you purchase the Athene's Unholy Grail, and then you're left with a Fairy Charm in your inventory. Now this next item is dependent on what kind of AD carry you're playing with. Ideally you're playing with a hyper carry or an AD carry that has a decent amount of auto attacks, which would lead you into the Ardent Censer, as that's a good multiplier on your auto attacking champions. Also gives you a nice little amount of base stats as well. Don't really need the extra movement speed here, but it's okay. One thing you may have already noticed if you're new to Yuumi, you don't buy boots. So you don't have flash and you don't buy boots, as you always be attached to someone and you can't give them the movement speed that you have. So the only reason movement speed is useful is when you're coming out of Fountain, if you died, or if you're looking to roam, in quotations, and by that I mean just like moving to a different player. So boots are a completely wasted purchase on Yuumi. So she's able to get into these core items pretty quickly, and she can save about 800 to 1,000 gold not having to pick up boots. So it gets you into that double item spike pretty quickly, and that's one of the reasons why Yuumi's pretty strong at the moment. If you're not going into the Ardent Censer route because you haven't got an auto-attacking AD carry, then you could go Redemption. Just bear in mind, go into the Forbidden Idol route first and try and pick up this health as late as possible, as Redemption does have 200 health and will affect your cut down slightly. Not too dramatic, but it is a factor. You could also, if you're doing really well in the laning phase, say if you manage to get kills in the laning phase and you're doing pretty well, you haven't really died, maybe only one maximum death, you can pick up a Dark Seal and start acquiring some stacks that way. Because Yuumi, if you play Yuumi correctly, you really shouldn't be dying too often, and you should be able to put yourself in a situation where you're picking up some Dark Seal stacks. And if it gets to close to 10 and you're doing really well, converting into Magi's gives you a massive AP boost, and if you can get to the 25, then you're looking really good for the rest of the game. So this build here, what I have in my item slots already, isn't an uncommon build. You could pick up this Dark Seal before the Forbidden Idol if you're doing really well in the laning phase, just to get those stacks up. But it's not unusual to see a Magi's on Yuumi. Kind of ironic because it's a book and she's sitting on a book, but double book power. So a common build would be like this, and then you could convert that into Magi's. Just obviously always make sure you pick up Control Wards. Some controversial builds will have no health potions, so I probably should have mentioned this. Always make sure you buy those health potions at the start. You will be using them in the laning phase. Don't think you're sitting on your AD carry for the entire game, because if you play like that, you're playing Yuumi wrong. You will want to harass with your auto attacks, so you will need those health potions for the first portion of the laning phase. As your kind of final item, it's really greedy to go something into a death cap. I wouldn't necessarily advise it. What you can do here is you'll be put onto 30% cooldown reduction at this point with your Transcendence. I would edge into just maybe finishing off a redemption here at this point, especially if you haven't completed the Magi's. You want to get to that 40% cooldown reduction still, and 200 health at late game is not really much to worth bothering about in terms of your cut down. So that's like the item kind of progression in your build. There used to be an AP build on Yuumi that no longer works, which worked with Ludens and Death Cap. In the current situation of Yuumi, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're worried about your, say if they got a lot of CC and you're on an engaged champion, Michaels can be okay, and Shrillies can be okay in terms of boosting your team and getting into a fight as quickly as possible, but I wouldn't say that they're required, and you could probably get off with just the core try healing items on Yuumi, and then maybe like a Magi's stuck in there, or a Death Cap, depending on your situation. If you've died a lot, but you know still have a lot of gold excess gold income, or Rabadons to finish that up would still be absolutely fine to do. So that's the item coverage there on the Yuumi. We're going to be talking about the abilities on her now. So we need to kill all the minions, and we'll spawn in some dummies. Gonna need a few for this one here. So Yuumi, when you spawn level 1, will always have W. So Yuumi's kind of unique in the fact that you have 2 abilities level 1, because you can't actually play Yuumi unless you can actually attach. So you always will start off with W. The cool thing about W is that it's got natural scaling throughout the entire game. But per point scaling, adding extra points into your W isn't great on the scaling. It has adaptive force scaling. So say you pass off a portion of your ability power onto your AD carry, and your AD carry gives you a portion of their either AP or AD turn it into adaptive force and then give it back to you. So if you're sitting on a tank with raw, like high armor, high magic resistance, you're not going to be giving them, sorry, they're not going to be giving you much adaptive force. Whereas if you're sticking on someone with a Jhin with like 500 AD or a Veigar with 1000 AP, the adaptive force scaling that they give back to you from your W alone is ridiculous. Yuumi generally does quite well with AP champions that have Rabadon's Death Cap, because you're giving them AP, and then the Death Cap is then the extra scaling on top of that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be sitting on those type of players though, but just a little bit of useful information there. But your W is your attach tool. As long as there's another allied champion nearby, you can just spam it constantly. You can be hit while you're Wing over, so you could get hooked or stunned while you're doing this transition. You're not immune to damage, and you're not immune to CC at this point. You are immune to damage and crowd control if you are attached, as long as there's no debuff already placed on you. Say if you got hit by Ignite and then you W to an ally, you're still going to take the Ignite damage. But you can't actually get physically hit from this situation, and things like Karthus ulti won't hit you. It's the same with the Bard. Say if you get hit, your champion that gets hit here with a Bard ulti, you can still actually just unattach from them. So you're not like targetable while attached to a champion. Now this has some interactions now with your other abilities. So when you're attached to someone, your Q is a projectile that follows your mouse. The longer it's out in the air, I believe it's after 1 second. So if you notice, it starts really small and then it gets bigger. The little, when it goes, showcase it one more time. There's like a little blink and it gets bigger. You get bonus damage, and the slow will start to activate off that as well. So you ideally, if there's an enemy champion quite close to you, it can be risky, but sometimes it's better to then spawn the Q behind you and then get it in like that, just so you get the extra slow and a little bit of extra damage on top of that as well. But there is the risk that you could end up missing that Q, so it's not the end of the world if you decide to spawn it in front of yourself there as well. The other interaction with your W as well means that you can also use your heal on other targets as well. So your E ability is a heal. It grants the target bonus attack speed and movement speed. It's a really expensive mana cost spell. You'll have to use it a couple of times during the laning phase. But if you use that, when you attach to an ally, instead of it self-casting on yourself, it will give it to your allied champion. So in the laning phase, you're looking at something like, you're going to generally want to max your Q just for damage harassment. And then it will be your E be max second, and then your W. We'll talk about the ultimate in a second. But that is the most common build path that you'll be taking. If you are against a lot of assassins, or you're struggling really, really badly in the laning phase and you need more sustain, stop putting points in your Q and try and max your E first. That's the only case where I would suggest you need to max your E, is in that situation if the laning phase is going really, really badly, as doing some extra damage on your Q isn't going to change the situation for you on bot lane. You just want to survive until you get to that mid-game spike. So your passive is you have really, really bad, as you mentioned earlier, really, really bad mana regen on Yuumi during the first part of the laning phase until you pick up a triple Fairy Charm. One thing you can do in lane, especially early, what you should be doing anyway, is using your passive. Getting one auto attack is an instant laser cast, so that goes actually through wind wall. Yasuo wind wall. And what that does, it gives you mana and it gives you a decent shield. But what usually happens is when you're doing this trade anyway, with this shield laser, is that you're going to take some minion damage anyway, because the minions will aggro you for auto-attacking an enemy champion. And also the enemy might trade back. So you might lose this shield anyway. It's bonus if you get to keep it. And the main reason why you're doing that is just to give yourself some extra mana. You might want to still throw in a couple of extra auto-attacks whenever you can. Not only, you know, is extra damage, but you'll still be generating Thieves, Spell Thieves Edge stacks of gold by doing so. And auto attacks with the Airy are actually not bad DPS, especially during like the earlier portions of the laning phase. So you've got this shield. Say you manage to get this full shield from an enemy champion. You can only get this shield and the mana regen from an enemy champion. So you get it. If you W to an ally, it then gives them the shield, very similar to how it's not self-cast with the E. And it's, you know, if you dip over to a different person, then they're the one who gets the shield instead. Another interaction here, as you may have been noticing here as well, is that Airy also gets passed over quite frequently. It's not instant, but that can be an effective tool just with the summon Airy anyway, to pass Ardent Censer stacks towards different people. Now we're going to be talking about the ultimate. So your ultimate is a channel. It's got lots of waves here. The damage on it is actually reasonable, and it will, if they get hit by 3 of those hits, then they get rooted. So it's like a Sonar ulti, but it's not instant, and it's not a hard CC. It just roots them in place. The thing with this is what you'll end up finding yourself doing is, say the person you target on, you do your ulti, and then you might need to like actually unattach to ensure that those stacks go on, because the person that you're attached to may be running in the wrong direction. That's not uncommon. Just bear in mind though, if you do get hit by a CC ability and interrupt, this will suddenly stop casting. Whereas if you're attached to someone and if this champion here gets stunned, your channel won't be interrupted. So those are the pros and cons of leaving an enemy champion, an allied champion, sorry, when casting your ultimate. I think here we can show off 1 or 2 little things that you can do. So with the ultimate as well, you can keep that channeling as throughout the fight, so you don't have to unattach. You can also W to an allied champion as well in order to keep that going, so that you'll be using that quite often to ensure that those root stacks keep happening. Another tactic that works well with that method as well is Yuumi's Q. So if we attach here, you see the circle on the Q? As soon as the Q exits the circle here, it fades away. It will hit someone if they're standing there still, but it dissipates. But what you can do is when you throw out your Q, and say if the enemy was over here and your allied champion wasn't moving, to reach that extra distance, you could W to your ally. So I'm going to see if there's a way I can showcase this nicely. So the limit is there. If we put a target dummy just past here. So you can see here, we're out of range of this target dummy here. But if we throw out our Q, and then W over to this other champion, we can still make that range. So as you can see here, we can't reach it from this distance. But if we throw out the Q, then W, we can then hit that person over there. So these are quite advanced moves. It's kind of difficult sometimes when people are slippery and moving around, but those are two ways you can help redirect where your abilities are going. Not a lot of people know about that one, so I'm glad I can actually showcase that in a guide. That one, yeah, that one does blow people's minds a little bit, that works as well. So in the laning phase, you're not looking to win. If you get a couple of kills, then that's amazing. Really good job. You're looking to play with an AD carry. Ezreal is the most meta pick with Yuumi because of how slippery he is and how hard he is to gank and how hard he is to pin down. Both you and Ezreal's job anyway is just to last out the laning phase and get your items and then move on into mid game. And Ezreal's like the hardest champion to lock down because of that. So if you can play with a champion ideally that is slippery and hard to lock down, then that will get you the most out of the laning phase. If your AD carry isn't doing very well, don't worry too much. You might need to stay bot lane just a tiny bit longer until you hit something like 6 with your ultimate, and then you can go jump onto someone like your jungler. What your jungler can do with you is that you can speed them up with your E, and then when they get into a gank range, then you can use... So E will speed them up and give them attack speed if that's useful for them, and then you can ult them and help set up ganks that way. Also, if you're attached to your jungler, you're not going to be stealing XP from the jungle camps that they do. So if your AD carry is doing really, really badly, I recommend you start looking for players around the other side of the map and start getting someone ahead at that point. Because then what you can use then from that point on is that one of the solo laners or even the jungler that's getting really far ahead, you then stay almost permanently attached to them for the rest of the game. I've got a couple of gameplay sessions that I can link underneath the video once this is on YouTube. Showcase of me on like Rengar, for example. There's like a double kitty combo where I just let him do like 80% of the work. I just help him, give him the bonus stats from the adapter force scaling here. That I'm giving him extra attack damage with my adaptive force, and giving him extra movement speed, and I can help him chase down with people with my prowling projectile, my Q, because the max range Q will also slow the target as well. So it's just really good synergy on people that have lots of engage, and it helps you catch people off around the map. When you're entering into a team fight, so that's more of a situation when you're looking for making random picks across the map. In an actual like 5v5 fight, it might be better then to stay either onto your AD carry or a frontline tank, because that means you get more use out of your ultimate. And then after that, it's more about throwing Q out whenever you can to get the Athene's Unholy Grail stacks for the extra heal, and giving people extra health with the Athene's Unholy Grail stacks with your heal. So you'll be doing lots of dancing, lots of bobbing and weaving. I should add though, when you're doing your ultimate, you can use your heal, but you can't use your Q. So you can still heal people, you can still, if your person that you're on isn't in range, you can heal them up to move into range a little bit quicker, but your Q is locked off. So it's probably surprising a few extra moves there that people don't realize on Yuumi. She's not just sit on your AD carry and just, you know, pray for the best. She has a few moves that some people aren't aware of. So, you know, make use of your auto attacks in the lane. Don't be too much of a scaredy cat. during the laning phase. Make use of your autos whenever you can. Say if there's a big cooldown on the enemy bot lane, say if you're playing against a Blitzcrank and he's missed his hook, then you want to start looking for auto attacks. And then go back onto your AD carry when it looks a bit more dangerous. In terms of like warding, you can still ward while attached. I think that's probably the most frequent question actually, is like, how do you ward as Yuumi? It's okay to leave a little bit. Just pay attention to where your jungler is, where the enemy jungler is. You're not going to be able to do deep wards by yourself, but if you can jump onto any champion that's sort of doing a little invade, then just ward along the route effectively. That's basically what you're doing. Unless there's any other questions in Twitch chat, I think we finished up here. Maybe this guide helps you out and encourages you to play Yuumi, maybe before she gets nerfed again. But hopefully a lot of these fundamentals do stay in place if she ever does get nerfed, and I'll update in the comment section down below if anything dramatic does change on her, because she does seem like a champion that could get changed again. So we'll have to keep an eye on it and see. This guide was made in 10.12 again, so any reference there. But yeah, if you enjoyed this support guide, don't forget to subscribe. Keep out for more tier lists and support guides that I make here as well. There's loads of stuff coming out like Leona, Lux support, Zyra, Nami, loads. Huge. Swain. And if you're watching on the Twitch stream, don't forget to follow, and we do lots of Grandmaster support gameplay. We do some fill and flex, and we do more guides like this, and I'm planning to do every single support. I've been trying to do at least one guide per day, which is quite challenging, but I'm enjoying it at the moment. So yeah, hope you guys are staying safe and take care. Bye.